Welcome. Today we're looking into one of history's great, really enduring mysteries, Jack the Ripper. Specifically, that controversial theory that links the artist Walter Sickert to those horrifying murders in Whitechapel.
It's quite a claim, isn't it? The really prominent artist being accused of, well, that.
Exactly. Why him? Why Sickert? We want to unpack the arguments suggesting he could have been the killer, especially looking at his art, but also touch on why so many people find the theory unconvincing.
Right. And if you look at the case for Sickert, it nearly always circles back to his paintings, his artwork.
How so?
Well, the argument goes that his paintings, which often dealt with pretty dark, gritty London life, maybe they contain hidden clues.
Hidden clues, or even depictions of the victims.
That's the idea some people put forward. They look at certain paintings, maybe La Hollandaise or the ones called the Mrs. Barrett series.
Okay.
And they interpret, maybe a shadow here or the way a figure is posed as matching details from the Ripper crimes, maybe even police photos.
But that sounds incredibly subjective, doesn't it? Like reading meaning into something ambiguous.
It absolutely is. And that's a major criticism. The idea is maybe it's confessional art or like trophies.
And this connects to his known interest in crime, because he definitely was interested in that sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. That's documented. His fascination with, say, the Camden Town murder, which happened later.
Yeah.
He painted that subject.
Right. And didn't he supposedly rent a room he thought the Ripper had used?
That story's out there, too.
Yeah.
So this interest in the macabre, it gets woven into the narrative that maybe he was capable of it.
So beyond the art, are there other lines of argument?
Well, yeah. People have delved into his personal life, suggesting psychological motives, sometimes linking it to alleged physical conditions or even misogyny.
But how solid is that? Some of those claims seem to rely on later accounts, maybe not fully verified.
That's a key point. Critics often point out that some biographical details used to build that psychological profile are contradicted by, actual historical records.
Yeah.
It can seem a bit flimsy.
Okay, so the art interpretation is subjective, the psychological profile debatable. What about physical evidence? I know there have been claims about paper and DNA.
Yes. That gets very specific. The paper analysis compared paper from some supposed Ripper letters to paper Sickert used.
Was there a match?
Similarities were noted, apparently, but the big counterargument is, well, most experts think the vast majority of Ripper letters are hoaxes anyway.
Right, so even if the paper matches, it might just link him to a hoaxer, not the actual killer.
Precisely. It doesn't necessarily connect him to the murders themselves.
And the DNA, that sounds more concrete.
It sounds more concrete, but it's just as debated, if not more so. The claims usually involve DNA found on stamps or letters linked to Sickert.
Okay.
But the type of DNA often cited is mitochondrial DNA.
Which isn't unique, right? It's passed down the maternal line.
Exactly. It's shared by potentially, 1%, maybe even up to 10% of the population in Britain at the time. Tens of thousands of people.
So it means he could be the source, but it's far from definitive proof. It doesn't single him out.
Not even close. Which brings us back to the timeline issues, especially with the art.
You mean when the paintings were actually made?
Yes. Many of those paintings, often cited as victim portraits, like the Mrs. Barrett ones, were painted around 1906.
1906. But the Ripper murders were in 1888. That's nearly 20 years later.
Almost 2 decades. So interpreting paintings made so much later as direct depictions of the 1888 victims, that requires a huge leap of faith for most historians and art experts.
It does feel like a stretch. If they were meant as confessions or trophies, you'd maybe expect them to be more contemporary with the crimes.
You might think so. And you might also expect perhaps clearer links to all the canonical victims, not just interpretations of a few paintings.
So what's the general consensus among experts, both in Ripperology and art history?
Overwhelmingly, they dismiss the theory. They see Sickert's interest in crime and dark urban themes as part of his artistic identity.
As an artist reflecting his time, exploring psychological tension, the gritty reality of London.
Exactly. Not as evidence of being a serial killer. His work fits within the broader context of art at the time, dealing with modern urban life.
So pulling it all together, it sounds like the case for Sickert relies a lot on, interpreting ambiguous art, some questionable biographical links, and forensic claims that don't really hold up under scrutiny.
That's certainly how the critics see it. The theory is fascinating, it persists, but the actual evidence connecting him directly to the crimes is considered weak by most experts.
His fascination with the darker side of life was real, though.
Undeniable. But was that the sign of a killer? Or simply an artist confronting the unsettling realities he saw around him? That's the question that lingers.
A question that keeps this particular theory alive, even if the evidence isn't quite there. It really highlights how difficult it is to solve a mystery this old, and why the Ripper story continues to fascinate.